tell the look she's giving you or giving me. She's like, please get me out of here. She's looking at me like, do something. So, welcome to the Midnight Debrief, Carl.
Hey, Kevin. And we have our mascot Critter, who's in full costume and alien mode right now.
Yeah. She's having a great time, clearly.
Yes, she's having an amazing time. Not.
Yeah.
We won't torture you any further, Critter. We will take this hat off of you right now, okay? There we go.
All right. Good job.
Go play with it.
You've earned your catnip. So with that, welcome to the third episode of the Midnight Debrief, Carl.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah. So with our third episode here, we're actually going to dive into one of the strangest intersections in modern science and folklore. We're talking about aliens. We're talking about cover-ups. Some people that were part of aerospace programs of the government that mysteriously disappeared. But the big topic and big discussion really has been UFOs, UAPs, and the files that are being released from that. Some of these we kind of already had an idea like what to expect, I think. And some of them were just completely like out of left field that we really hadn't heard about or thought about before.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we're going to do a deep dive into that. And, you know, we'll start with kind of the, lack of a better word, phenomenon itself. When you hear people talk about UFOs, UAPs, what are sort of some of your thoughts behind what's out there, what's known, and what we're learning?
Well, now that the government has come out and officially said that we're basically not alone in the universe because there's all these videos to look at and all this information to review, when I think of a UFO now, I think of, wow, well, it's not really much of a mystery that it was before because, right. You know, it was a situation where you either were a believer or not a believer, and a lot of people were kind of ostracized for believing in it.
Yeah.
You know,
the tinfoiled hats, you know,
right.
The ones that are standing in the middle of the crop field yelling at the sky. Those are kind of the more traditionalists when it comes to alien folklore, I guess. And right. Now it's becoming more, you know, mainstream. So it's not just some of those quote unquote crazy people. It's now being covered on major network news. Obviously, we had the Senate hearings about it. So like we mentioned, the government's starting to quote unquote release files. So there's a lot to it. And I think that's really where you wanted to start off and kind of go into the alien stuff, right?
Yeah. So what I'd like to discuss first, Kevin, is an instance where UFOs interacted with nuclear weapons, basically taking them offline. So Maelstrom Air Force Base, Montana, March 16th, 1967. Mysterious bright lights are seen flying back and forth across the sky. And one of these bright lights lands just outside of a security fence at a military base. And a sentry at the base calls up his superior to report a UFO. But what happens next is astonishing. The nuclear weapons at the base started going off alert, which basically means they're entering into a state where they couldn't be fired. And when one missile went offline, they suspected that maybe it was just one of the maintenance crew that did it and didn't report it or follow the protocol. But when all of the other missiles started going offline, all 16 of them, by the way, something very bizarre was going on, they thought. And then Boeing, who manufactured the missiles, couldn't figure out what happened at all. And it's still unknown to this day how the missiles were taken offline. And ancient alien astronaut theorists suspect that numerous UFO sightings near military bases indicate that aliens are not only here in the United States, but they're trying to influence our future.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything, I guess, in your opinion, or maybe what you've researched, as to why they've chosen the United States? I mean, is it the geography? Is it our military bases? Like, what is it, do you think?
That's a good question. I mean, we're a very developed country technologically. I think that maybe that's what's attracting them to the United States, as opposed to maybe being seen less in other countries as opposed to us.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. But UFOs have taken a great interest in our nuclear facilities.
Right.
So according to Dr. Stephen Greer, aliens are trying to see to what extent we might be a risk to this planet and to others in space that are peaceful.
So we think about aliens, and believe it or not, I mean, there's different species, and we all kind of have theories of, are they already here? Are they creatures in the ocean? But there's a few that really stand out more of the traditional sense, and one of them being the Greys, right?
Right.
You see it pretty much everywhere in pop culture. So the Greys have, the oval, almost elongated head with the narrow, the narrow mouth and the big eyes. And so you even go back to when they were doing the radio broadcast of stuff like War of the Worlds, right? With Orson Welles as the narrator. And that's that scientific or sci-fi type alien that you see. Now, as far as what they're able to do, there's various and varying reports, right? That's probably the most common alien abduction or common alien encounter is with the Greys, where they can read your mind, they can slip through walls, they can disappear, they can do this and do that. We think of them being these ultra intelligent beings. And so that's kind of been at the forefront of a lot of that alien talk. But there's certainly a couple more that are that are interesting, that are different.
One in particular is the Nordic aliens, also known as the Palladians, believed to originate from the Pleiades star cluster.
So they're not from Switzerland and Sweden, Norway, Finland.
No, they're not. But the Sumerians and the Mayans left behind references to the Nordics hinting at a connection between them and humans. They're described as highly evolved spiritual beings that are tall, fair-skinned, with vibrant blue eyes and blonde hair, and have a benevolent and peaceful demeanor.
So what's wrong with these aliens? Because I feel like, invite them, let's hang out, have a party, and get to know each other. They sound pretty nice.
Exactly. It's surprising to kind of find out that there is an alien race out there that doesn't want to destroy us or manipulate us in some way or fashion, right? Or abduct us.
Yeah. Well, they're just more interested probably in like IKEA. They want to help us build some furniture. Here's our mascot again.
Hey, critter.
Hey.
Are you glad to have that mask off your head there, or the little hat, the alien hat? I'm sure you're glad to have that alien hat off your head. Yeah, sorry we had to do that to you. All right.
It was worth all the catnip, right?
Exactly.
See you later.
Bye.
So to pick up where we left off, as we were interrupted, Nordic aliens.
Yes. So they possess telepathic abilities and have advanced knowledge in areas such as energy manipulation, healing, and interdimensional travel. And Nordics have a vested interest in guiding humanity towards a more peaceful and enlightened existence. And one theory proposes they're not physical beings, but rather spiritual entities that exist on a higher plane of consciousness. So encounters with Nordics report that they claim to have profound spiritual awakenings and enhanced psychic abilities after their encounters. So there's some film references, such as the Nordics are referenced as Asgardians in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, with characters such as Thor and Loki.
Okay. Well, Loki, I mean, he wasn't such a good guy at first, and then he kind of came around, but Thor's pretty cool. So do you think that these type creatures, the Asgardian type aliens, do they have the power of thunder? Do they have, what do they got?
Good question. I would think that if they have the telepathic abilities and they've mastered interdimensional travel, then sure, why not have control over the elements of nature, right?
Yeah, which is pretty cool. And so one of the other interesting alien species is and I brought it up earlier, but the reptilian aliens. And this was fascinating to me because I remember, I'm not a huge Doctor Who fan, but I remember seeing something about the reptilian type aliens on Doctor Who. And I feel like I heard something where in ancient history, or ancient myths rather, in China and India, and reptilian aliens are kind of prominent in some of that folklore.
Yeah, they are. And these reptilians, they're not very nice. And they're pretty massive in stature. We're talking about 6 to 9 feet tall. They have a humanoid form, broad shoulders. Their limbs are muscular with reptile-like green or copper-colored skin and vertical slit pupil eyes that are unblinking, glowing with an inner light, yellow, red, or green. And abductees insist that the gaze is hypnotic and paralyzing, and they emit a sulfuric putrid stench.
Ugh. So, I mean, is it something where you would, it sounds silly to say, but like you would know one if you saw one, but how come these are talked about more, especially like nowadays? Like, I don't know that a lot of people have, when you hear about the alien abductions, they're not talking about the reptilian aliens. It feels like more than anything, and this especially on social media, you see a lot about reptilian humans, right? Where they show, I don't know, someone in particular on video, they blink twice and their second blink turns into like those vertical slits you were talking about.
Exactly. And well, they're not as known for their abductions because they're very secretive.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones who have been abducted, they claim that they feed off of fear itself, and they report nearly identical features of their appearance. They have a cold, calculating demeanor, and for those who have stood before them in their presence, there's like this radiation of authority.
Mm-hmm.
They're highly intelligent, they're manipulative, secretive, and apparently they have an interest in controlling human systems.
So I know we make like there's always jokes about government, right? And it's always been the way. But if you're someone that actually kind of believes in this, it's theoretically possible, or I don't want to say theoretically, but you might be one to believe that there are some of these alien creatures, reptilians, running the government, running the White House, running Parliament, wherever, right?
Yep. And they are known to be shapeshifters.
Okay.
So it's been said that kings, queens, sitting presidents of the United States have actually been reptilian.
Okay. I believe that to an extent, yeah.
So apparently David Icke has been talking about reptilians for the last 36 years, and he's been ridiculed for his theories, but it appears that he may have been right on the money this entire time. He describes reptilians as interdimensional beings that manipulate humanity through bloodlines, institutions, and control systems. Reptilians are shapeshifters influencing world leaders and elites. And he also talks about the archons, which are higher dimensional controlling forces, where these reptilians are the physical manifestations of the force in our reality. So I don't know, Kevin, have you heard of this theory that he has called the Saturn Moon Matrix?
No, I haven't.
So I looked into this, and this is actually really fascinating. And it's worth a deeper dive maybe in another episode. But basically, his theory is that Saturn is a major part of this broadcasting of a fake reality that we are decoding in a world that we think is real, but it's actually fake.
So a simulation? Is that kind of what he's talking about?
Not necessarily a simulation, but what we're experiencing right now, we're not fully experiencing what we could be fully experiencing if we were fully awake to it.
Okay.
Okay.
So it kind of goes into, if you think about 3D, right? We live in a 3D universe or perception, consciousness. And then we start talking about 4D, right? And then we start talking, so there's different
Right.
elements to it where it unlocks different aspects of the fabric of what we know or beyond that.
Yeah. And he also goes into detail about how the moon is not a natural body at all. It's actually a hollow alien satellite amplifier from the Saturn broadcast.
Okay.
And this sounds out there, I know, but hear me out. So this matrix is suppressing human expansion of awareness, such as telepathic, interdimensional contact. So basically, we're programmed to work, buy, consume, and die.
They Live was a great movie.
It was. Absolutely. So that's what I have about David Icke, and like I said, we could go into greater detail on that one. I just wanted to bring that up because I found that pretty fascinating. And
How did do you know how his theory started? Like, what prompted him, or what got him on this idea? I mean, this is pretty deep, so you can go to. I'm not going to go on a huge Scientology rant, but L. Ron Hubbard and the science fiction novels that he wrote before that, and I mean, is this one and the same, or how did he come about some of these ideas or theories?
That's a great question. I know he's done a lot of thorough research throughout his entire life. He's basically dedicated his life to these theories, and it's pretty fascinating stuff. He's got a great video on YouTube about the Saturn moon matrix.
Okay.
That you can catch.
Nice.
Yeah.
And to our listeners, what we'll do is we'll post some of these, or we'll copy and paste some of these links where you can find the videos in our episode description, so you can just go in there and check these out yourself, because it's fascinating. And like you said, we could spend so many episodes, so much time talking about this, and it's right now, I mean, that's all everyone's really talking about is UAPs, UFOs, conspiracies, in terms of what the government's role is in this, or what their role isn't. So yeah, that's really interesting stuff. Like, not to put you on the spot, but ultimately, like, how much of that from Mike do you believe? Like, if anything, like personally?
Honestly, I personally believe that he's onto something here, and it's got me really intrigued.
Okay.
And it makes a lot of sense once you start to dig pretty deep into the material. He has this great lecture on YouTube about it, and it's about a 45-minute video where he goes into great detail about his theory. And I got to tell you, it holds up pretty well. I mean, some of the references in the beginning of the video may seem a little like a bit of a stretch, but once you start looking at his references, but because he uses a lot of really great references to scientific authorities throughout history who have commented, especially about the moon. Now, what I find really fascinating about the moon is that scientists have said that basically the moon shouldn't even really exist, but it does. And the fact that it's there is like a 1 in a trillion chance that it just happens to be right there. It influences our tides. I mean, everyone has like weird emotions when there's a full moon too.
Right.
Like there's the whole like psychological part of what the moon does to our behavior, which that's a whole nother topic to go into right there. But it very well could be that the moon is cloaked and we don't know what exactly is going on the moon, and we only see one side of it.
Yeah, and I mean, that's certainly interesting. I tend to believe more. There's, I think, some old school theology behind that for sure, but we just sent Artemis to a moon mission, not going to the moon, but orbiting the moon and doing some research on that. And they were the first to capture the dark side of the moon. And so I was really interested in seeing what that looked like. But I think all of this is sparking at least great conversation and really starting to walk a line of what is consciousness, what is everything outside of this, right? I mean, and this is kind of sort of on track, but also off to the side. It's, if you think about the universe as we know it, I mean, 95% of it is made up of, dark matter, something that we have no idea to a degree what that even is. So it's very plausible that, he's right, or some of these theories could be on point. Just, we may or may not ever know. It's interesting.
But now finally, what I find reassuring is I think that obviously the government thinks we're ready to know the truth. I think that they want us to know that they're not really going to fully come out and say, okay, here's everything, because we're really not ready to handle
Here's some crumbs. Yeah, I think you nailed it with what they want us to know. Yeah. I think I mentioned it last week too. There was, and this goes back to some of the people that have been involved in the aerospace program and have close connections to this, that have said, if I tell you what I know or what is actually known within that inner circle, it would blow your mind. You wouldn't be able to even comprehend what is out there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely true. And, and here we are, we're scratching the surface now, and a 1,000-mile journey begins with a single step, right? So, by learning and studying and talking and about this material and getting this information out there, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of the more you think about it, the more unsettling it is, beyond what we understand for the most part. So there's concrete proof to a degree, and obviously everyone does their own research. And what I always find interesting is back in the 90s or 80s, we had a lot of these encounters where people would point their camera at the sky. They would have a video camera, and you would see a triangle of lights or something that was moving super fast. It always looked like a saucer or a disc of some sort. But I always found, once you move kind of beyond that old grainy VHS footage, and you start getting some proof, whether it's military radar systems, classified aerospace programs, which we kind of brought up earlier, Navy strike groups, advanced propulsion research. There's a lot out there that's dedicated to what we're trying to understand beyond the stars, beyond our own atmosphere. So, and, clearly where we are now, this isn't the 90s. It's not the 80s anymore. There's a lot going on. Right. I think with a lot of these declassified documents, it's starting to bring up a good conversation of what is real and what is fabricated. We do have the Pentagon confirmations, as I say, congressional hearings, military pilots talking about their own stories. You have the transcript, the audio transcripts, where it's, there's a bogey at such and such altitude. I mean, these are pilots confirming that there's something else out there. And it's not even just Americans that were doing this. I mean, you had Russians and, other countries that have seen the similar things. I think it was back in the 80s. I heard about this recently, so I may have to double check, but I think it was like back in the 80s. I know it was during the Cold War era, where basically the Soviets were thinking that we were trying to strike them. There's aircraft everywhere. There was about 12 different unidentified aircraft. It wasn't Americans. And they kind of did everything they could to cover this up and try to figure out what they were seeing. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't us. And they still really couldn't explain it. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very fascinating because, there's a theory too that, from our point of view, from the United States, is it Russia and China? Is it their technology we're seeing flying around with these UAPs and UFOs? Or are we actually seeing real aliens? And now that this, documented, substantiated proof has come out from our own government, it's not what we thought it was,
Right.
or thought it could have been,
Right.
right? So now we have all this footage to look at, all these, like you said, audio recordings and video recordings, and there's so much to look at and analyze that it's pretty mind-boggling, to think about. Hey, we're not alone in this universe. We can't be. I mean, there's so much proof now that's come out.
Yeah.
Right.
And even during the original moon mission, now they've released audio of, hey, we're seeing something weird. And so it's out there for sure. Not to take away the X-Files catchphrase, but it's definitely out there. So, I mean, the government literally created an office dedicated to investigating this type of stuff. So there's, like you said, substantiated evidence enough to where it's being declassified. So naturally, I think people start asking a bigger question overall. It's if governments are finally releasing a lot of this information, if we're finally catching wind of these things that we thought were out there anyway, how long has the government really known about this, right? So we go back to Area 51, but who's been studying this technology the entire time? I mean, at this point, do you think we're witnessing genuine disclosure right now?
I do believe that we're witnessing disclosure to a certain extent, but like I was saying earlier in the evening, this is not going to be a full disclosure. I don't think it's going to be, because I think the majority of people out there really can't handle the full truth of what's out there. Like, because God, if they release all the information, I think people are just going to go insane, and like, it's going to, religious institutions can fall apart.
Yes.
What are the ramifications of full disclosure? So, I think it's fascinating that you turn on the news and they're talking about the 4 different aliens that have been found in crash landings.
Right.
That there's 4 different alien types. I mean, who would have ever thought we would get to this point, Kevin?
Yeah, and then you have astrophysicists, renowned professors, anybody in the astrophysics realm, one of them being Neil Tyson deGrasse, that it came out in a couple interviews and podcasts. He said, well, we have all this spacecraft that we're finding, but we're all the little green men, right? So yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of questions, and I brought it up earlier. I don't know if we're ever going to know, but to understand what's kind of going on, and this goes on a deeper level, and this is kind of what I wanted to talk about, was some of the prominent figures, talking heads, if you will, and people behind the scenes that have gone missing, right? So
Right.
there's 11 scientists, researchers that have gone missing. I say missing, but they had mysterious circumstances around their deaths.
Right.
And I don't think that's just a coincidence. There's a lot more to it. And as we dive a little bit deeper, I think our audience is going to start to tie together those pieces and, connect the dots. It's mind-boggling from what you're talking about, and then connecting the dots to some of these people that were behind exactly what we've been discussing this whole time. So the most famous being that Roswell incident, right? So a rancher discovers strange debris in New Mexico. The military initially announced they've recovered a flying disc, a saucer. Then suddenly changes to now supposedly a weather balloon. And we hear that all the time. It's a weather balloon. And from that, moving forward, public trust kind of fractures. So, even decades after Roswell, we're talking about the government repeatedly denying the existence of UFOs investigations entirely up until now. And then there's Project Blue Book that existed. There's experimental aircraft that existed. Area 51 slowly becoming one of the most infamous places around, especially for being the center of kind of this alien quote unquote activity. So people knew there was something happening there at Area 51. Then you also had things like the SR-71 Blackbird. You had a stealth bomber, things like these that are being researched, and there's incidents behind them. So over time, again, people started wondering what else might exist behind these classified walls. So we talk about Bob Lazar. He appears in a televised interview claiming he worked at a secret facility near Area 51. This was called S4. And according to Lazar and the United States government, this was actively reversing engineering non-human spacecraft. So they're trying to find the technology, reverse engineering it, maybe for military use for us, who knows. Now, Lazar didn't really present himself like a screaming conspiracy theorist. He was just kind of a regular Joe for the most part. He spoke calmly. He was intelligent, kind of like an engineer, if you will. Okay. So he discussed gravity amplifiers, Rector systems, something called element 115, propulsion fields, which has been kind of talked about for quite a while. So he wasn't the first, but there is something with manipulating gravity itself, which he goes deep into. And really a lot of that started to permanently change UFO culture all by itself. It became more about the technology behind some of these aircraft. So again, the reverse engineering, there was also something called the Black Budget Aerospace Project. So this is exactly where scientists begin to, question what's going on, but they start to enter the story. So there's obviously a responsibility to be truthful and to be accurate and to have the right data. But you would think there's also, on the other hand, some people that if it fell into dangerous or wrong hands, that it's misinformation and kind of skews the public's thinking, right?
Sure. And it goes back to the notion that are the people, the general public, are they ready to have that information or know it, and what are they going to do with it once they have it?
Yeah. So we go from Bob Lazar. Now this is again starting from back in like 1989 when he was first started to come forward with some of these findings, but the timeline jumps again. We're talking about 2004. So there was obviously a few incidences, the biggest one being the USS Nimitz encounter. So the USS Nimitz was a UFO incident, and Navy pilots tracked what became known as the Tic Tac object. So with this, there was no visible propulsion. There was impossible acceleration, instantaneous directional movement, light characteristics beyond known aircraft. And for years, the footage quietly existed in the background until eventually, again, the Pentagon confirmed it was authentic military footage, and we're starting to see more of this lately. And honestly, I think that moment psychologically broke people because it became real. But once you have the government admitting, yeah, this is actually out there, by the way, I know all of you are talking about this, but hey, that's real. We do have evidence of this. It becomes pretty crazy. And then came David Faver, Ryan Graves, again, congressional testimony, intelligence whistleblowers, eventually David Grush. So David Grush, a former intelligence officer, claiming the United States possesses non-human craft, retrieval programs, hidden information withheld from Congress itself, and whether people believe Grush or not, the important part is really these conversations are now happening publicly. Too. And the idea of scientists mysteriously dying is not new at all. One of the biggest conspiracy theories involving researchers began back in the 1980s. So we talked about this in private a little bit as we're doing research, but the GEC Marconi scientists kind of conspiracy theory. It's like the Star Wars theory.
Right.
So basically, a series of British scientists, engineers, and defense contractors connected to military technology programs reportedly died under circumstances that were murky at best, right? A lot of these involved unexplained accidents. We talked about our cursed episode. A lot of these kind of tread that same line. They were something where someone got pushed off a cliff, they mysteriously died in a car accident, someone actually hung themselves by putting a rope over their neck, accelerating their car, the rope connected to a tree, and killing themselves. It's weird stuff. So it's super weird. I mean, there's disappearances, there's alleged mental instability, of course, and a lot of these were connected to advanced defensive operations, military systems. This was the era of radar systems, missile guidance, electronic warfare, satellite technology, classified aerospace programs, that sort of thing. And eventually, as I said, they evolve into something a little bit darker. So what if these scientists knew things that we weren't supposed to know, right? So what if they had all of this knowledge wrapped up? And honestly, I'm terrible at keeping secrets, so I don't know how they would be able to do it.
You hit the nail on the head, because are you going to really hold all that information in? I mean, and not tell anyone?
Yeah.
I mean, hell, I would want to tell someone.
Like, how do you keep that from maybe your spouse, your best friend, or hell, even your dog? Like, I know secrets that no one else knows, and I'm going to be the first to tell you because I can't keep it to myself. Like, holy shit. So,
right.
I mean, officially, there's never been evidence proving any sort of coordinated operations with these, but conspiracy culture, obviously, they don't let the story die. So decades later, when modern UFO disclosure explodes, now, the Marconi deaths came roaring back into that public discussion. So I guess my question for you is, do you think secrecy automatically creates paranoia?
I do. I think that overall, we are paranoid as a general public,
Yeah.
and in general, people are just paranoid by nature, and that's in our psyche.
Yeah, and I think you're looking for answers that you don't really get the confirmation of. And that would drive anyone crazy. It's like you keep searching or you keep needing confirmation. I know this to be true, but I need someone to tell me that I'm not losing my mind. And yeah, so I think there's a lot of truth behind that. And in going back to some of these researchers, there was, for advanced propulsion, there was someone named Amy Eskridge, and she did a lot of anti-gravity theory, but she publicly discussed advanced propulsion concepts. So electromagnetic systems, exotic propulsion models, and immediately the internet kind of attached the UFO culture to her work. It's one and the same, and to a degree. And so to speculate, we could say, well, yeah, these aliens have a lot of advanced technology. They go fast. They have to go at least the speed of light, or 9.99999 speed of light, to get here in a relatively quick amount of time. But what's weird is, after Amy allegedly discussed her feeling monitored before her death, the internet exploded about, what she was talking about. And suddenly she knew too much. She got too close and she was silent. So there's a lot of these connecting dots where prominent figures in this field are starting to lose their lives. And it's so weird.
I have a question for you, Kevin.
Yeah.
Now, who do you think is silencing these poor scientists? Is it our government or is it aliens?
You know what? So if we're going to play the, I believe in aliens and 100% they're here and there's everything we've talked about being true. Like, if we want to go ahead and walk down that aisle or hallway, if you will, I think they could be in cahoots, right? It's, if the government is hiding aliens and maybe there's some handshake deal where they're saying, hey, we'll help you, you help us, and we don't really know what's going on. But if some of these scientists and researchers are getting too close, yeah, why not? I mean, get rid of them. It sounds crazy, but I don't know why. I don't know why it wouldn't be true.
And if they have this technology that is light years ahead of ours, you'd think too that they have a lot they can hold over our heads and say, hey, look, you better listen to us or else.
Mm-hmm. Which kind of begs the question, what's the ultimate end game? Right? So
Exactly.
why are we going through all this trouble? Okay, let's assume for a second there's definitely aliens, which is cool. But why are we covering it up? Like, so is it about money? Is it about control? Is it about power? And honestly, I think it's survival. We're destroying ourselves. And I know Elon Musk has talked about mission to Mars and all of that. I mean, that's sure we could probably get to Mars in our lifetime, but we're not going to see any sort of colonization or anyone having a long stay on Mars in our lifetime, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's in our human nature to be scared of the end. So that begs a question of what happens after. And I don't know if we're ready to necessarily answer that. You and I have our own, Christian beliefs, but I think for some other people, it's a little different, and that's okay. But I think human life is about ultimately survival.
Right. That's a great, that's wow, that's cool.
It's profound.
It's definitely profound. And I personally think it's all about control.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had to guess which alien species is taking out these poor scientists, I would point to the reptilians.
Honestly, so before we even really started talking about this tonight, that was kind of my thought, because it's, I mean, if they're true, if it's real, if they're here, absolutely. They blend in, they manipulate, they disguise. It would add up. There's another, and I think there's more than a few people out there, and I brought this up very early on, but I was like, there's creatures in the deep, in parts of the oceans we've never explored, all the way to the bottom that man cannot reach, where these octopus lie. And it's very, very interesting. They dream in colors. They can blend in with their surroundings. So there's a lot of interesting features and characteristics of octopus, especially, that, as crazy as it sounds, can be connected to some of the alien technology or alien characteristics we're talking about tonight.
Fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
We could even have a whole episode on aliens of the ocean,
Yeah.
I mean, because there's all kinds of evidence as well that they have on these bases hidden within the ocean,
Mm-hmm.
because there's been plenty of eyewitness accounts and video of these UFOs or UAPs taking off from the ocean near Los Angeles, which is a very heavily populated area.
Right.
And you'd think that, of all places, are they going to have a base right next to LA? But I mean, there, like you would say, there's better decisions to be made here.
Yeah, I think he could go somewhere else. And this may be too deep into it, but I don't know if our audience is aware. I'm sure many of them are smarter than us, but there's something called, I think they're neutrinos. And so essentially, if you were trying to go faster than the speed of light, otherwise you cannot do it unless there's a medium that's introduced. So going faster than the speed of light, you have to put something kind of between that, right? And we think about photons. So the way to do that is you can actually travel faster than the speed of light, for instance, in water, if it's neutrinos and things like that. So I wonder if the water is serving as some sort of in-between that actually propels a lot of that technology. So it would totally make sense that they're launching from there.
Makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And a lot of that technology is so interesting. And then that brings us to a whole nother realm of possibilities. We're talking about time travel and wormholes.
Yep. And it's very possible that aliens could actually be time travelers from 10,000 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's ironic that reports of aliens have humanoid traits, like, for instance, the Greys, right? They're eerily similar to humans. They have legs, arms, hands, two eyes. Is it possible that they came from the future or the past? Or might they be human time travelers?
Yeah.
And then there's the whole J-Rod.
Yeah,
Are you familiar with J-Rod?
I am. Yeah.
So in May of 1953, Kingman, Arizona, during the height of the Cold War, a UFO reportedly crashed in the desert sands, and the remains of the UFO were sent to Area 51. Reportedly, the remains contain an actual living insectoid alien named J-Rod. So J-Rod assisted the U.S. military in developing the futuristic technology for the Kingman aircraft. And what's even stranger is J-Rod claimed not to be an alien at all, but actually a time traveler from the future. And he said in the near future, there was a catastrophe that would wipe out most of mankind, and that mankind would be split into two species. One of these species would go and live underground and develop these insectoid traits.
Going back to how that could be possible, I mean, if we think about Einstein's theory of relativity, that would totally make sense, at least for the theory of they're coming in from the future. It's not really the future, but it linearly it kind of is. So if they're 100,000 light years away, it's going to take that long to get here. So technically it's in the future, but our future is all relevant to the observer. So it's kind of crazy how all that works. But yeah, going into the alien species that could live underground and evolving into something even greater right here on Earth.
Right. And that leads us also into the whole wormholes topic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, a little background on wormholes. In 1935, Albert Einstein and Nathan Rosen published a groundbreaking discovery that the theory of relativity actually allows for shortcuts across the space-time continuum.
Right.
And these paths, called Einstein-Rosen bridges, are most commonly known as wormholes, connect two distant locations, making them basically remote travel across a space a possibility. Scientists estimate that in order to create a wormhole, it would create an enormous amount of energy that we're not anywhere near capable of producing today. However, it has been theorized that if we could harness the power of exotic matter, that it could be the key to unlocking wormhole travel.
Yeah. And it kind of goes into maybe a little bit about what dark matter actually is, how it could help us, how we can harness it. We don't know. But if you think about space-time, and in this case, when you're talking about the wormhole and you want to fold it in half, you have distant A, you have, A, and then you have B, and it's a great distance. But if you were to fold that like a piece of paper in half to connect that, it's instantaneous. So I think that's really what that wormhole theory is describing. So, to your point, it's how do we harness that to create that space-time rift, or that fold in the space-time, to get to that time warp, if you will.
So, Kevin, so what if wormholes actually already existed, right?
Yeah.
So it's possible that these celestial beings have used wormholes to visit our ancestors in the distant past.
Mm-hmm. Even pyramids, and Joe Rogan talks about this a lot, but you talk about the technology of the pyramids and how it was made and things like that, and what it actually is a symbol of. A lot of common thought is they were basically a worship temple for these pharaohs and kings back in the day that died, and it's basically their tomb to give praise to, sort of. But when you really break it down and break the geometry and how it was built, that's where a lot of these questions come in. And aliens is really that, I think, the number one theory of how those are made. No one can really just explain it in simple theory.
I totally agree with you, because you look at, have you ever been to Egypt and seen the pyramids?
I have not. I was there with Flight Simulator one time. I think that was like Microsoft Windows 98 back in the day, but that's the only time I've been. It was great.
And I act like I've been there. I haven't been there, but I mean, I've seen enough video and documentaries to know that these things are massive. They are huge.
Yeah.
And there's no way that human ingenuity back then could have built these massive structures.
Absolutely.
And with the precision that they built them too. And that the fact that they line up with star systems.
Yeah.
I mean, how could they have possibly have known this back then?
Right.
All right, so this leads us into another interesting topic, aliens in parallel universes. So there are 4 possible parallel universe scenarios. One is where it could exist in the exact same space that we're in now, but it's so far away that we can't see it or reach it. Or number 2, multiple other universes could be a giant cosmic soap bubble in a sea of cosmic space bubbles. Or number 3, many parallel universes occupy the same space and time as our universe, but because they're in different dimensions, they're invisible. Or 4, all the laws of physics are different, so everything looks completely different. So, Kevin, in your opinion, which one of these do you believe to be true?
Well, I would say number 4 doesn't really add up, because it's saying that, what was that? Physics are different in all different dimensions, or?
The fourth one was all the laws of physics are different, so everything looks completely different.
I don't know what that's related to, because I think, at least in our universe, in our little neck of the woods, we know the law of physics and we have an understanding of what that pertains to. So I don't know if that means, hey, on a different in a different parallel universe it's different. I don't know, but we don't know the answer to that, obviously. I would say number 3 is the most accurate, or at least the most plausible, right? I always think of kind of undeveloped film, right? You have the negatives, and I always think of the negatives being more or less what is behind the curtain in our realm. So if you were to reach out, you're literally touching atoms and everything around it, and you're kind of reaching into the fabric of space. And a lot of people call that the veil. You're reaching behind the veil and uncovering what's there. So that's kind of my belief, is like, especially with, and this goes back to you and I, how much we love ghost hunting and the paranormal, right? So this is kind of a good segue into that. I think that's really what, in my opinion, explains number 3.
Yeah, and that's where I'm going with this next. So in my opinion, I believe many parallel universes occupy the same space as our universe. And the reason I believe this to be the case is because of my own personal experiences with the paranormal. When one sees a ghost or angel, could that be proof of us interacting with a parallel universe? And I would argue that yes, that's exactly the case. Now, I haven't personally seen a full-body apparition known as basically the holy grail of paranormal experiences, but I have witnessed a fascinating experience while using a Ouija board. So, and may I also preface that this is back in 2009 when I was in college.
That's not an excuse, Carl.
And I made a documentary short called The Mystery of Ouija Boards, which is actually a little mini doc on the warnings of basically using a Ouija board to not use it. They're
Use
dangerous.
at your own discretion.
At your own discretion, indeed. So back in 2009, back in the college days, I was filming a mini documentary called Ghost Fact or Fiction, which is on YouTube. And my classmate and I were using the Ouija board. And we had a local paranormal investigation group there with us. And one of them had a temperature gun pointed at the Ouija board. And while we were using it, there was a 20-degree drop in temperature around the board. And my classmate was so freaked out because she was absolutely convinced that we were communicating with her deceased grandmother from the things that we were getting back from the board.
Yeah.
And she was so freaked out that she urged me to please don't use this footage. You can't use this footage. It, kind of was an argument between the two of us, but in the end, I ended up not using that footage. But my whole point of all of this...
So tune in next week where we review the footage of your Ouija board mishaps. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. So I propose 3 possibilities for this encounter. 1, could we have been interacting with an alien species in a parallel universe in that moment? Or 2, were we actually communicating with her deceased grandmother? Or 3, could we have been communicating with a demonic entity? Kevin, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, it could be a combination, right? So definitely it could have been a demonic entity because depending on what your belief is or, how deep you actually want to get into it, the thought is that demons can manipulate. They can fool you into thinking one thing or another, right?
Absolutely.
Especially when your intentions are good. They know the intentions are good, and then that's kind of where the trick starts to come into play. Yeah, so I think starting out with possible demons, demonic activity, right? So if you think about lore and people's thoughts behind it, and there's a lot of religious beliefs, but the overall senses is that they play tricks. They can be terrorizing. They can change into things. They can manipulate. They can make you think one thing and something else is happening. And when you really start to think about it, who does that immediately ride you of that we've talked about so far tonight?
Reptilians. Hands down.
Hands down. So that's another thing we can talk about. Yeah, and going from the demonic, it very well could be aliens and her deceased grandmother, because I don't want to get into a religious thing, but everyone has their own thoughts and their ideas. But if we're kind of playing the fantasy world a little bit and looking into it, I think aliens could be communicating with her, communicating through her. We talked about negative aliens and how harmful they can be or what they're trying to do. And then maybe, I don't know, to the flip side of that, maybe there's some positive aliens that are doing things through us that otherwise we can't.
So, Kevin, I even have a second story to share. This dates back to 2016. I had just gotten out of a toxic relationship.
Was she a reptilian or?
Now, Kevin, come on. No, yeah. Why do you got to reveal my secrets like that? Of course she was reptilian.
That's disturbing. So thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Okay. I'll see you later.
So I was spending the night at my parents' house, and I do have to warn our listeners that this is a very disturbing story.
I already feel disturbed. Sorry.
Should we start over again?
No, keep going.
All right. Keep going. All right. So I'm laying in bed, and when you get that feeling that something's watching you, and maybe you're walking at night and then it's completely dark and you look over your shoulder and there's nothing there, but you think there's something there?
Yeah, like the hair on your arm stand up, or you like get goosebumps. Like
yes.
You can get that sensation where, yeah, there's something here.
Exactly. So I had that emotion going through my mind at the time. And I look over, and towering over me is this very tall shadow figure. And it was this deep black figure with a fedora hat, and his stare was so menacing that I was totally freaked out. I froze in terror, and then once I broke loose from that terror, I immediately thought of the fight and flight instinct, and I took the lamp off of the dresser and I swung at this thing. I ripped the cord out of the wall, knocked stuff off the dresser, and ran for the light switch, turned on the light, and then it disappeared. My mom came running into the room. Hey, are you okay? You know, and I told her what happened, and she believed me. And you know, this all goes back to what we were talking about, though, is like, what could this thing have been? You know, was this actually an alien, or maybe a time traveler from a different dimension? I know there's all these really interesting theories on shadow figures.
Right.
What are your thoughts on shadow figures in particular?
I mean, you talk about there's sleep paralysis, and like I've done that a bunch of times, and you're completely just observant. You're aware of what's around you, but you can't move, and you always feel like this figure is on top of you. Like it's just this suffocating mass of something crazy, something evil almost. You know, but it very well could be something trying to come through and communicate. You just don't know. It's, yeah. I mean, in my opinion, it very well could be. Like, I'm of the belief, like I've seen stuff like that enough times in my own life where I'm a true believer in spirits and what is between our realms. So, you know, that it's very plausible that's what it was a ghostly entity, an alien maybe, who knows? I don't know.
Right. Or could it have been some demonic entity that was feeding off the negative emotions?
Yeah.
You know, like you said, who knows? It could have been any of those. And I'll never really know the answer.
Yeah. I mean, if you're kind of mentally in a vulnerable state to a degree, in a sense, it's very well they could feed off that. You never know. I mean, there was always the discussion of what are demons, what are angels, what are aliens, and it's all, at least now, in terms of the public discussion, kind of one and the same. They're all starting to blur lines of what is really these entities that we keep running into.
You know, I'm sure someone else has put this theory out there already, but I would say that after everything we've talked about tonight, I'd lean towards the reptilians, because remember when I was talking about the reptilians earlier, that they're known to feed off of fear itself.
Right.
That the actual fear emotion of a human being could actually elicit some type of energy to this reptilian alien that they can actually feed off of and are insatiable for.
Mm-hmm.
So could it be that these reptilians are time travelers, or are they the shadow figures? I think that very well could be.
Well, to kind of finish out what we were discussing, we're talking about the reptilian species. So this is kind of interesting. I think it's a great segue. So to kind of top this all off about the reptilian species. So there's someone out there, William Tompkins, who was heavily involved in secret extraterrestrial conflicts. And his stories are absolutely insane. So he claimed there's hidden space programs, that there's actually extraterrestrial races manipulating humanity. We talked about this. Non-human intelligence influence world events. So this kind of ties into what the reptilian discussion is all about. And when you look at this interview, it's how calmly he was talking about all this. He was very certain about what he was talking about. He sounded like a retired office manager discussing, you know, payroll issues. It's pretty profound, but also a little disturbing. But yeah, the reptilian species actually was something that, or a race that was having these intergalactic wars apparently with us. So I don't know how people separate entertainment from fact or reality, but his interviews became hugely influential because of his conspiracy theories, the communities around that. And a lot of people view these as legible, or not legible, but credible. So even if 1% of what he's talking about, where these reptilians were at war with us secretly, how many scientists would actually need to know to prove this? So the bigger question here, Carl, if we're kind of putting a bow on everything, is, and again, I think the reason people obsess over this topic is because, deep down, people know that this is real. So in your estimation, from what we've talked about, I mean, what do you attribute to being real, or what do you attribute to being fantasy, made up, sci-fi? So what do you think is real? What do you think is not overall?
I really think that the reptilian alien species does exist. And what I find hard to believe, and I think it's more of the sci-fi, a lore, if you will, is the insectoid aliens. In the story of J-Rod, like we were talking about earlier, for us to be living underground and then not mutate, but evolve into a insectoid alien, I find a stretch, to be a stretch, but the Greys, the Nordics, the reptilians.
We got to give love to the Nordics.
Hey,
they're good looking, they are friendly, they have blonde hair, and they put together some great furniture. So it's a win for the Nordics in my book.
I would agree with that one.
Yeah.
So anyways, wow. We've covered so much tonight, Kevin.
Yeah, I think, and again, this is kind of broad strokes of everything that's out there. We're trying to compact this into one episode, and you and I get excited about talking about this. I think the hardest part is saying, okay, pre-production, what do we want to talk about, and how can we convey what our feelings are? How can we ask some questions to the audience, and be excited, and you try to, again, just compound this into one episode. It's really hard to do, to be honest.
It really is. There's so much to talk about. You and I love this topic, and we could go on all night long about it.
So we've gone over so much here, and I think there's only one question to be asked that's left, and that is, Carl, what is a go-to sci-fi, alien, UFO, planetary type movie that you can sit down and watch over and over again? What's your go-to? The audience just tuned out.
Well, I can't remember the name of it, but my God, what is the name of the one? And I can't remember the damn name.
Space Odyssey? No. Interstellar, Arrival, The Martian.
No.
Wall-E.
Wall-E. Well, Kevin, I'd have to say that my choice would be Fire in the Sky.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah, and because it's so viscerally disturbing, and no one would ever want to go through something like that. That's like my deepest fear is alien abduction. And after watching a movie like that, I couldn't sleep at night. And then I want to watch it again.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And you're like, although it's fantasy, it feels really real. I'm like, we were younger when it first came out. So again, like 10, 11, 12 years old, whatever it was. But it's just very detailed and graphic. But I remember asking my parents to go see it in the movie theaters. And they're like, no, we're not going to go take you to see that. But as I watched it as an adult, I totally understood. I was like, oh my God, like this is nuts. It was crazy. So yeah, that's a really good one for sure.
It is. And if memory serves correct, it was the Greys that abducted in that film. And
They get a bad rap though, because you look at Signs, and remember there's a still of when you see the alien for the first time, and it kind of turned into an internet meme. But I mean, the Greys are the most popular type characters in pop culture. It seems like it's the easiest to draw, the easiest to make, and they're the ones that really get thrown under the bus, I feel like.
yeah, I would agree with that. You think it's like they are the go-to aliens that everyone thinks of.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Personally, I'd have to say for me, if I had to choose one type movie like in that genre, it'd be Interstellar, like all day. It goes along the lines of pretty much everything we've talked about, where it's infinite universes, parallel universes, string theory, you name it, wormholes. And I just think that is such an interesting movie, and Matthew McConaughey killed it. But it also goes with the theory of relativity. There's black holes in it. It literally serves every type of every itch you have. It scratches for any sort of astrophysics or theory, anything behind it. So that's always my go-to. I can watch that numerous times in a row. I love it.
I love Interstellar as well. You're absolutely right. There's so many great facets of that film that it's definitely rewatchable, and it's cross-generational too, I believe.
Yeah.
I mean, like our kids and our grandchildren will watch that movie one day and really appreciate it.
I think it's like our 2001 Space Odyssey for our generation to a degree.
Right.
I love Stanley Kubrick's 2001. I thought that I didn't watch that till I was probably like 20, 25 or something. But I have such an appreciation for how that was shot. Just the artistic cinematic shots that he did for that is incredible. So that's my other go-to. So it's Interstellar, 2001 Space Odyssey are must-haves for sure.
My favorite of 2001 Space Odyssey is HAL.
Yeah. Touche. But I think tonight serves as a lot of different points into what we can talk about. I love that we were able to talk a little bit about everything in terms of disclosure, type of aircraft, aliens, technology, species. I think we hit on all points.
I'm sorry, Kevin. I cannot do that.
But yeah, I mean, what a topic. This is kind of a hot button topic, I think, right now with the consensus, with the public, with everybody that's ever had a question about either what's out there, what is in the afterlife, anything you can possibly imagine about humanity and why we're here, is kind of up in the air as far as a lot of these questions. But we're always going to be searching for answers, and I think that's the peril of mankind, is we're always going to be wondering. Maybe someday we'll find it. Maybe one day we won't. But I think tonight's episode served a lot of those points and brought home a lot of context into what this is all about.
Well, it's exactly 11:11 right now.
Holy cow! Okay.
A time prompt that I've seen quite often.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And you know what's really creepy? Our phones. Well, it's no surprise. Our phones listen to us, of course.
Right.
Today, I got a push notification from Meta AI. This is Facebook's whole thing, right? It said, "Oh, by the way, 11:11, the time prompt. If you're interested in knowing more about this, here's a whole article about it," and it went into whole detail about 11:11 and seeing this time prompt in particular, what it really means. And I'm like, wow, that is creepy. I mean,
Yeah.
I've mentioned it to other people and everything else. I always have my phone with me, so the thing is listening to me clearly. But
Right.
and I just looked down at my watch. It's exactly 11:11,
Yeah.
and we're getting close to midnight. You know what that means?
What does that mean?
Well, life gets a little stranger after midnight, right?
It does. So appreciate everybody listening. Hopefully there was some new information you gathered from this. There's a lot of discussions, a lot of talking points that you can take away. We really appreciate everything. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We got our YouTube channel. We got our Instagram. We're working on TikTok. Thank you, Samantha, for putting everything together, our social media director. Carl, any final words before we sign off?
ET phone home.
ET phone home.
ET phone home. Good night, everyone.
That was a great ending.
Thanks. That's what came to mind.
That was perfect.